You begin to see a pattern in video game development when you're involved in so many games, and when you take the initiative to see the new video games on the market, you'll begin to see these patterns too. We also follow up on these games after a few months so we can learn from them further. This time, we follow up on the games we looked at between January and March of 2016 to see how they evolved. The new content, the community, the problems with the games, and if they were addressed or not. Have they improved with time, or have they become worse? Let's take a look. Homeworld, Deserts of Kharak feels a lot like Supreme Commander without the base building and massive amounts of units. The Homeworld games had the unique feature of positioning your units around in 3D space and having massive ship battles in real time, but then they turned it into a game that uses the same flat RTS playing field as pretty much every other RTS on the market. It's an okay game in its own right, and mechanically speaking, everything seems to be working perfectly, but when it comes to the innovation, the really cool distinct features, and the wow factor, everything just feels flat. And here we are a few months later. Several patches were made to the game, including balance patches, but I noticed in the patch notes they added their reasoning for each individual change. For example, in one patch they reduced the railgun's effectiveness against battle cruisers to promote strategic variety in games. They did this by reducing the railgun's movement speed and armor. It does make sense in an engagement between railguns and battle cruisers while not drastically affecting the matchup between other units. They're supporting the game like any reputable developer should, and that's always a good sign. For DLC, they added two new factions. The Sobin and Canef fleets are basically reskins of the Coalition and Galcium fleets respectively with a few tweaks. There's no story DLC or new campaigns added. That tends to be generally what people want in DLC, and it's not present here. The game also had an issue with region locking when it came out. Players were reporting that they could only play with others in their own country. The player base was segregated right from the start, on top of its already low player base. It turns out they used the Steam API for peer-to-peer communication and matchmaking, and its default behavior of filtering by distance acts as a pseudo-region lock. It works well if you have enough players looking for a match at the same time, but since they didn't, it gave that illusion that you were limited to your own country. Either way, the result is terrible. It was very difficult to play with anyone at launch, and these days it's even harder because almost no one is playing. The game is dead. This is Blackbird Interactive's first game, and while some of their people have experience in the industry, I think the greater part of their team doesn't have that yet. They can get things working, but they can't get people to play the game despite its amazing review scores. The skirmish AI is either too easy or it cheats, so at this point, it's a single-player campaign only. With a little over 100,000 copies sold and at $50 a pop, let's hope they spent less than $5 million to make this game. Every now and then, you'll see a new game that's better than the original, and Rise of the Tomb Raider is one of them. It seems like Crystal Dynamics listened to the response from the gaming community about the reboot and changed the formula to make this game better. And the time and effort that would have been put towards a tacked-on multiplayer mode was put towards improving the single player. Now that several months have passed, what's going on with this game? There is an upcoming story DLC called Blood Ties, which takes place in the Croft Manor. It also includes a bonus game mode called Lara's Nightmare, where you fight off zombie hordes, so it seems like a good DLC to get by itself. The rest of the DLC is just skins and two very short pieces of story DLC. As usual, the whole concept of the Season Pass has led to disappointment. The game will also be released on the PS4 on the same day as Blood Ties. The PS4 version is called Rise of the Tomb Raider 20-Year Celebration and includes all of the DLC. There's not a whole lot to say about this game. The post-release support was fantastic with all of its patches, the game in and of itself is pretty good, and hundreds of people are still playing this game. I'm still wondering about the timed exclusivity deal they made with Microsoft. The Tomb Raider reboot sold 3.4 million copies across all platforms in its first month, and Square Enix said that was disappointing. For Rise of the Tomb Raider, VG charts and Steam Spy shows 2.6 million copies sold to date. It was initially released on the Xbox One at the same time as Fallout 4, Unofficial sales figures made it look like a flop, yet Microsoft and Square Enix were very happy with it. No one has come out and said what the deal entails, but I can only imagine that Square Enix was paid off handsomely, more than enough to justify the lesser sales numbers. These deals are serious business. XCOM 2 moves away from the whole alien invasion scenario and changes it into resisting alien overlords. It opens up a whole different set of gameplay dynamics, and it's also harder to compare it to the older XCOM games because it tries to be different. I like the new classes in the game because it makes everyone much more versatile, but at the same time, I'm disappointed because this versatility is built on top of the consoleization stemming from the previous game. Many of those gameplay elements were streamlined, such as the loadout decisions being replaced with class-based abilities, but it's still a very good game in its own right. The game now has 4 DLC packs available. The first 2 are simply cosmetics that were rated very poorly and should be ignored. Mods for the game have been considered to be superior, and they're available on Nexus Mods and the Steam Workshop. The other 2 DLCs changed the gameplay up a bit. Alien Hunters adds a few new weapons and a new tanky enemy called the Ruler that appears randomly in a mid to late game mission. This changes the dynamics of the missions and how you approach them, though this DLC has mixed reviews, citing balance issues and the Ruler's health regeneration mechanic. Shen's Last Gift appears to be the best DLC for the game. It adds a new story mission and a new technology to the base campaign. The mission appears fairly early, so you have the option to secure the technology first and then take advantage of them in the mid to late game. I said it's possible that they'll announce a port to consoles, and it looks like the game will be released for the Xbox One and PS4 at the end of September. Its development is being outsourced to an American developer called The Workshop. I have never heard of them before. It was originally planned to be released at the beginning of September, but they delayed it to refine the game further, so those on consoles will finally be able to play the game. But considering XCOM 1 sold relatively poorly on consoles, the same thing might happen here. At least they focused on a PC-only release first to cater to the fans, and that will translate to a much better game for the console players. XCOM 2 peaks at over 4,000 players every day according to Steam charts, so as expected, the game and its community is still going fairly strong. Unfortunately, the price did not drop at all like I was hoping for. The regular price is still $60. The Steam Summer Sale brought it down to $36, but I don't see any other sales. You're paying a premium for this game, but if you want to play it and you're still holding off at this point, maybe it's time to swallow that pill. Console players will be in the same boat, so you might as well enjoy it together. Or if at all possible, hold off for another sale. These are the games I looked at between January and March of 2016. Next time, we'll follow up on the games between April and June. Thanks for watching!